There are a lot of lines in relationships. The lines that connect us and the lines that separate us. This is a nice, healthy relationship where it's a two-way street. There's give and take. One party may take a little more and one party may give a little more, but it all generally works out. Now this is a great situation for the person on the left, but for the person on the right, it's a diagram for resentment, burnout, or managing a narcissist. Unless you feed on drama or are fueled by conflict, this is not a very livable line. Oh, the dotted line. This is the dotted line of the unrequited love or the non-committal partner where you spend hours, days, weeks trying to draw that frickin' line. Another kind of dotted line is the line between you. This is the too permeable membrane where you do not know where you end and the next person begins. Some people call this intimacy. Other people call it codependency. Or, in contrast, you can draw a line so hard that nobody's getting in and you're not going anywhere, though you may create a tiny little space for somebody to get in. But good luck for that guy to find it. Let's rejoice in this line. This line is the healthy boundary, and it is a beautiful thing. Tonight I want to tell you about how I've drawn lines and healthy lines in my relationships, and how my current very happy relationship started with a drawing, and how my last unhappy relationship ended with a drawing. So, my partner, my soon-to-be husband, and I met online like many people do, and I borrowed a line from a good college friend who had a rule. She had a very unique name, and she lived in a small city. Therefore, she never told anyone before the first date what her first name was. That let her see exactly how to draw that line. Now, my name Brandy is a little more common and I live in a bigger city, but I figure if you put in Brandy plus Chicago in a search engine, you will find my vast online empire. And I had two reasons to keep people from finding that empire. Now, I was very aware of what I was putting out there in the world, but one, I didn't want people making assumptions about who I was. And two, I wanted us to meet on equal footing, get to know each other like regular non-internet people. The third beautiful bonus of this was that it was a beautiful test on how well somebody managed to respect that boundary. So I would sign my messages with the letter B. It was incomplete, but not inaccurate. Now, the response was varied. Some people were very turned off by it, which was perfectly fine. And my biggest turnoff was the people who went, pokey, pokey, jokey, jokey, what's your name, what's your name? That got tired quick. But happily, my soon-to-be sweetheart rolled with it. On the night, the eve before our first date, he sent me a message that says, "It occurs to me I don't know your first name. Therefore, I shall call you Beverly." Brilliant. He managed to be respectful of the boundary, but also playful with it. Thankfully, things went well, and we continue to play and respect each other's boundaries. So now, there's a big reveal behind here. Uh-oh, watch out. Next came the beautiful transition between when you like somebody and you like somebody. And I can tell you precisely when that happened. So we had 2 dates and 0 kisses when I went out of the country for 8 weeks. And this actually led to a beautiful courtship via WhatsApp and the occasional Skype video call. Now about week 5, I had hit the wall, not with him, but with the travel and with the work. And I had collapsed on my bed in my Airbnb in Copenhagen. And as I lay there a few minutes later, I get ping! It's a notification that he wants to chat, and I say, you know what, I'm just having a heck of a time. I'm like, nothing's going horribly wrong, but da-da-da. And very sweetly, he texts back, "Can I draw you a bath?" And I thought it was very sweet, but kind of silly, considering we were 4,000 miles apart. And about 5 minutes later, ping! There's a drawing of a bathtub. Ping! The drawing now has wavy lines coming off of it to show that it's a hot bathtub. Ping! Now there's bubbles in the bathtub, but I explained, I'm not really a big fan of bubble baths. Ping! He's erased the bubbles. A couple minutes later, ping! Oh, there I am in the bath. My little head sticking out. Now he has many beautiful qualities, but his drawing skills have plateaued at about an 8th grade level. So it's this beautifully awkward drawing. Absolutely wonderful. And then ping! The last version, the last iteration, there was now a little table by the bathtub with a bubble drink on it, because who doesn't like a cold drink in a hot bath? Right there. That's when it went to like, and I fell for him. So now the next line I had to draw for myself was, A, was I falling in love with him, or was I falling in love with how he treated me? Now, years ago, a friend of mine called me aggressively thoughtful, and I had met my match, and it was a beautiful feeling to be so well taken care of. But I did have to be careful to make sure I was truly falling in love with him. Again, not just his love for me. Happily, I gave myself time and space, and yes, indeed, I was in love with him. Now, we have a gorgeous relationship that has a wonderful ease. It's amazing how easy this relationship is. Not to say we don't have our rough patches, but 80% of the time, that involves being too tired or too hungry, and that's about it. We are actually this right here, which is two people on the same team going in the same direction. How rare is this? Oh my goodness. It looks so simple, doesn't it? But happily I have it, and I'm keeping a hold of it. So by contrast, my last relationship, we also met online, but he did not live in the Chicagoland area. So our relationship either was an 11-hour drive apart from each other, or we lived together 24/7 in my tiny one-bedroom apartment. There was nothing in between. And I swear, had we dated like normal people, that relationship wouldn't have gone anywhere. Instead, we ground our gears against each other for 4 years. About 3.5 years into this relationship of gear grinding, my mom passed away. And I was completely smacked with a tidal wave of grief. It's really kind of unexpected. I had a dysfunctional family, not terribly close to my mom, but it completely hit me sideways. And a very good friend of mine recommended to me something called the Hoffman process, which is I ship myself off to Northern California, the middle of the woods, to go work out all my family shit. Now, the beautiful thing about the Hoffman process is it takes you from this horrible, horrible tangle of a dysfunctional family, and you untangle it in this beautiful transformation. It was truly an incredible process that not only gave me a wonderful perspective on myself, but also the state of my current relationship. It's called the Hoffman quadrinity process because you're looking at 4 aspects of yourself. And ideally, after 8 days of looking at every nook and cranny, you become more integrated as yourself. Well, these 4 aspects of self became a really wonderful lens to look at the compatibility in my current relationship. If you looked at our physical selves, I'd say we were probably an 8 out of 10. We're doing pretty well there. Our intellectual selves were extremely well matched, off the charts. Our spiritual selves, I don't know, we're both atheists and we're both good with that. I don't know where the heck you put that on the scale. But our emotional selves, this is what our emotional life looked like. I was the blue line. I had the ups and downs, and he was the red line. He had a very narrow band of acceptable emotions. So anytime my emotions dipped below that band or rose above that band, it was not a pretty picture. So the relationship had gotten to the point where I would put on the gentle voice with less modulation to speak with him, and I would even sit on my hands lest I not gesture too wildly and freak his shit out. Good times, yeah. So that is what our relationship got to. But again, I had this new lens of our compatibility, and I was excited to go back to Chicago to tell him what I'd learned not only about myself, but where we were at. Now, they gave us back our phones. It was that kind of retreat. Gave us back our phones after 8 days, and I was standing under a tall tree trying to get reception, and I see this subject line that says, "Read me first," all capital letters. Well, while I had been wrestling my shadow self, he had gotten a new job 2 states away. So I got to go home back to the long-distance relationship. It was about 6 weeks later that I had the time and the money, and I went up to visit him. And again, I was so excited to tell him about what I had learned, but again, you can tell I'm going into gentle voice. I'm not going to get too excited. What I wanted to demonstrate was this is how I see a healthy relationship. The idea is that each person has their own stuff, right, on each side, but you're really meeting each other in the middle to create the relationship. The problem with this relationship that I was currently in was this is what it looked like. I was going all the way over here and pushing him, cajoling him, convincing him, lecturing him to the center. That's how it lasted 3.5 years. So I sat down with him and I said, you know, I'd really like to make this drawing of how I see our relationship, and let me show you what I'm thinking. And I grab a piece of paper and I take out my trusty paper-made flare and I go like this and draw a line. And he goes, and I say, what's wrong? Well, that line is awfully aggressive, don't you think? And that is how I knew that relationship was over. So we very amicably split that day, somehow got back together for about 6 more months of this, until we finally, after 4 years, cut it off. But there is a huge difference between that relationship and my now current happy relationship, which is that another big reveal, which is that I created a new line for myself. What had happened in that relationship was the question I asked was, can I make this work? I can make this relationship work. And that resulted in this kind of relationship. But instead, I drew a new line for myself. I raised the bar. And the new question was, is this relationship working for me? And I wasn't willing to settle for anything less than that. And that's how I got into a relationship like this. And now, I'm never going to cross that line again.